What you need to know about Google's updated review policies. At the end of April 2026, Google announced new guidance for their review policies that you need to be paying attention to if you're a business asking customers for reviews. Now, Google's core principles haven't changed here. They just want reviews to be authentic. They want them to reflect real-world experiences. And so the first big change, the first big shakeup here in Google's review policies is that they've now explicitly stated that asking customers to mention employees in their reviews is prohibited. So if you're incentivizing your staff and you're telling them, hey, when you ask for a review, make sure to mention me, your server, in their review, that is now prohibited and no longer allowed. The reason is very simple. If you're asking employees to ask customers to mention them in the review, that is altering what the reviewer may just authentically post to begin with. So if you're telling customers what to say in their reviews, to specifically have the customer mention your staff's name, that is no longer considered a best practice. So if your business has any kind of program or any kind of training that encourages your staff to ask customers to mention that staff member in the review, you need to stop that right away, because those reviews are now at an escalated risk of being automatically removed from your Google business profile. Unfortunately, like with many of Google's review policies, there are going to be legitimate reviews that naturally and authentically mention a staff member get removed as a result. It's just something that we're going to have to monitor and take a closer look at going forward. But that if your strategy includes asking staff members to tell customers to mention them, you should just stop that right away to reduce the likelihood that reviews that mention staff are automatically removed by Google. If every single one of your reviews mentions a staff member, it's likely that those reviews are going to get flagged at a higher rate than if it's only happening every once in a while. 5 or 10% of your reviews naturally and authentically mention your staff members, those reviews are probably going to be okay. You don't need to tell customers to not mention staff. You just need to make sure that you're not incentivizing and encouraging customers to mention staff in their reviews. The second big shakeup from what I see is that they also have now come out and created clear guidance that you should not have an in-store device to leave the review. So basically asking customers to leave a review before they leave the business from a specific device is now prohibited as well. And this is actually a good thing. We've been advising customers literally for almost a decade to not do this anyway, because Google's automated review monitoring system has always looked for the same IP address, the same location of the user from the same spot leaving a review, and that causing potential flags for removal anyway. But now Google has come out and clearly said that if you're using an on-premise device, that is now going to be an escalated risk of getting your reviews removed, because that feels again like it's not an authentic experience. And again, if you have to think about it, what is the reality of those situations? I'm at a business, I just had a great service provided, or I bought a great product, and then they're basically saying, hey, leave a review for us at this device. And it just doesn't feel natural, right? It's like, hey, you know what? I'll do it when I get home. I'll do it when I'm in my car. I'll do it when I'm taking a break from work, right? Leaving a review should again be a natural experience, basically, is what they're trying to strive for here. And so by having a dedicated device on site, you are basically reducing the likelihood that that review is done authentically. Maybe there's a little bit of a pressure. Maybe there's a staff member watching them. Maybe somebody's telling them what to say in their review. So this kind of falls naturally into like what Google is trying to accomplish, which is they're just trying to make it so that it's more authentic and that reviews are more legitimate. So if you're using any kind of iPad or any kind of specific device to ask customers for reviews and to leave the review from that device, you should stop that right away. So although on-premise devices are now excluded, you can still give customers a QR code on a business card or on a receipt. You can still give them materials to leave reviews for your business, a QR code, an NFC business card. They can do it from their device on premise. You just don't want it to be on a universal device. You don't want it to be on a dedicated tablet. So giving a customer a business card or asking them to tap to review, that's still fair play. It's worth highlighting that because you can still use technology to aid and to get customers to leave a review, but it just can't be from a dedicated device. The third big change is they don't want you to ask customers to leave reviews with a scripted prompt. Some businesses will send out an email saying, it'd be great if you mentioned X product or X attribute of our service in the review, right? So it's like, hey, when you leave a review, be sure to mention how crispy our French fries are. You can't do that. And the reason is because the actual content, the comment from the reviewer is actually taken into Google's algorithm. If every customer mentioned a certain keyword, it could manipulate the search results. And so they don't want businesses to go out and telling customers what to say. This basically follows in line with don't ask staff members to be mentioned. We can't tell customers what to say about our business. Google wants the reviewer to determine that. And so if you're sending out text or emails or in person suggesting customers what they should mention in their review, you need to cut that out. If every review mentions something similar, oh, they had such great clean facilities, employees, the staff was super friendly, Mike helped me, the french fries are crispy, whatever it may be. If you're basically every single review seeing a pattern and you're doing that intentionally, that is a problem that is going to increase the likelihood that those reviews are going to get removed. So you need to stop telling customers what to say about your business. You need to just start only asking for the review, basically. And that's what we've been advising customers to do at Map Labs, because we just know that that is the way to get the best outcome, is to have every review be authentic. And the best part is that if you don't tell customers what to say, you get real feedback too, right? If you're a business owner, you're an operator, you want to know what people love about you and you want to know what people don't love about your services without any fluff, without any manipulation. If you have perfect 5-star rating business, congratulations, that's amazing. You know, you're not doing anything wrong. But if you're 4.5, a 4.7 star, or 4.3 star business, that little bit of feedback can actually be impactful. It can tell you what you're missing. And so by training your team to tell people what to say in their reviews, you're actually doing your business a disservice. And so if you're having your team request specific types of reviews or asking for customers to mention certain things, whether it's a staff member or an attribute of your products or services, just cut it out. It's not helping you, and it's not helping customers to see the real truth about what's great and what's not about your business. The fourth change is that Google has long banned what's called review gating. So review gating has always been against Google's guidelines, and review gating is very simple. It's you send out a review survey. If they click 1, 2, or 3-star review, it gets sent to an internal feedback form, right? And then if they click 4 or 5-star review, you send them to the Google public link. So review gating is an old process. This has been around for a long time. We don't do it at Map Labs, but we do see companies still doing this and getting away with it. But the idea is that review gating is a way to essentially manipulate your reviews by trying to divert negative reviews to internal, non-public feedback and only give the actual link to your business profile to people who click on 4 or 5-star reviews. That's been in Google's policies for quite a while. What they've come out with now is a revision of that, saying that you also can't only ask customers who are happy with their experience to leave a review. So it's a subtle change, but the idea is that, you know, if you're asking customers for reviews, but you're only waiting for customers who say something nice about you to ask them, that's going to be considered review gating. Now, I'm going to just be honest about this one here. That's super hard for Google to police. Google's not going to know if your barista is only giving the business card to leave a review to people who say, oh my God, this is a great coffee, I'm so happy. They're not going to know that, but that's the spirit behind this, is that they're basically saying that if you're going to ask for reviews, you ask everybody equally. And so review gating and review filtering has been a thing for a long time, but now Google has just basically added the language that you also can't just only ask happy customers for reviews, which is a subtle but significant difference. But again, I do think that one falls into a bit of a gray area. You know, there is no such thing as the Google police in the real world. If I'm being honest, if it was my business, I would still be probably somewhat filtering like who I ask for reviews from. And you know, in those scenarios, you can say, hey, would you leave us a review? And if they said, you know what, I'm really unhappy with the service today, then, you know, that's a productive conversation you can have in person, and maybe there's a way to make it right. And so I wouldn't say to necessarily exclusively filter it out, but that's kind of the subtle change here that's going on, is that they're basically saying if you're going to ask for reviews, you have to ask everybody. You can't only just ask customers who you already know have had a good experience. And last but not least, this one's not very new, but basically they have just kind of refreshed it a little bit. But basically employees and family and close friends basically are not supposed to leave a review for your business, right? So this would fall into the category that sometimes when we onboard clients, they say, hey, can you leave us a review? I don't do that because, well, hey, you basically are paying me to help you with your business profile. So essentially you paid for a review, which directly violates Google's policies. And so employees, contractors, family, friends, they basically are not eligible to leave a review for your business because it's biased. It seems clear and obvious like why Google would want that. Of course, it doesn't mean that businesses are going to comply with all these rules. I would just proceed with caution if you are doing that. And I've actually seen within the Map Labs platform that Google's gotten quite good at catching who's an employee, even if they're not using their email that is on your domain. You know, if somebody frequently requests directions to a business, if somebody constantly logs into Wi-Fi, if somebody is doing something out of the ordinary, like constantly Googling the business profile and clicking on it and doing things, Google has other ways to detect whether somebody's associated with the business. And so I've actually seen this in our data that when ex-employees leave reviews for the business or current employees leave reviews, it gets flagged pretty quickly. I would say it's that Google's gotten very efficient at figuring that out. A lot of these things are public record. It's on your LinkedIn profile. It's on your social media. If it's public information, who you work for and where you work, it's going to be pretty easy for Google to connect that to the username of the reviewer's profile. I'm not saying that's the workaround here, but that is the reality, is that if the username and the tag intent and the handle of the reviewer matches somebody whose public information is available about where they work and they work for your business, that review is just going to get flagged or removed. Now, with all of that said, the real risk here is just that your reviews are going to get removed. I don't know that there's a real penalty that follows with this other than just the fact that you're wasting energy, right? So if Google's catching that your reviews are not authentic, they're not legitimate, the worst case scenario that we can tell right now is that the review is just going to get taken off your profile. But it's possible that continued ongoing abuse of these policies may actually also result in your business profile losing visibility. I've been doing this for over 10 years. I still have never seen a true penalty on that front. I've seen business profiles get suspended. That's what a penalty really equates to in the Google business profile spectrum. Whereas in other areas of Google, you could get like a soft penalty, meaning that like your website isn't removed from Google, but it's just harder to find. In Google business profile land and in business profile optimization, if your profile is live, it's visible, it's accessible, it's going to get found by customers. But if it's suspended, you're off of Google. And so the biggest risk here is that if any of these penalties do add up into a suspension, well, now we're talking about your business losing out on a lot of revenue, a lot of exposure. I see it all the times in the forums, businesses blaming Google for ruining their business. And in many cases, businesses are doing the right thing. They're following the rules and their profiles get suspended. But if you're not following the rules and your profile gets suspended, well, that's your fault, right? And so these are things that you just need to pay attention to. You need to be mindful of. You need to make sure that you're following best practices to avoid your business profile from getting suspended. And so if you're looking for a way to track removed reviews, check out maplabs.com. Our software has a system where we can actually compare reviews that have been removed from your business profile. And if you start noticing that your reviews are getting removed more and more and more, you may need to reflect and change your strategy. So if you're looking for a better tooling and a better way to understand how your business profile is performing, check out maplabs.com. Sign up for a free trial today.